Hello, thank you so much for joining me today at A Woman's Swords, the second video. Thank you so much for all your support for the last video and all your comments. It's been really wonderful seeing everybody, how they're enjoying it. I wasn't expecting really to do a second video so quickly, but I had this wonderful message from my cousin who on YouTube calls himself D Mythica. And thank you so much, Dee, for all your comments. And I was thinking that I would reply to you, or that I would chat to you personally, or that I would write a reply, but then I thought, why not just do another video and then everybody can hear my reply to those comments. So one thing that you write about in that comment is about the negative backlash that can come from these videos. And I'm perfectly aware of this, and yes, you're right, it is scary. I was quite petrified putting that first video on, but just seeing everybody's positivity really, really boosted me. And actually, even if there are some people that post negative comments, I know that it's doing its job. That's the point, you know. With the comments that you've made, Dee, I just want to just say a little something that I said in the last video. But when it comes to comments like this, that they've obviously come from a political party or from the media or somewhere. These are things that people are saying are positive about fracking, and my advice to you is just to really consider those points and think around them. Rather, I mean, when you read the sentence you think, yeah, that makes total sense, why didn't I think of that before? Absolutely, so true. But then when you actually think around the issue and look at it from many different sides, I think that all these comments fall by the wayside. But everything I say in this video, I'm perfectly aware that somebody could come back and give another answer to me, you know, and say, yeah, the opposite. Which is fine. That's politics, really. It's like a never-ending waltz, and that's how it is, okay? But I would like to give my reply to these specific things because I think it's really important to do so. And actually, one thing I did want to say just before we start is about your comment, Dee, about my patriotism and how I care for the British people and my passion. And while that is true, I don't necessarily consider myself patriotic. I don't think I've ever really thought of myself that way before. And it may look like that because I'm going, yes, we are the British people and we can do it. But actually that message is for the world. You know, I am patriotic to Mother Earth and to all of humanity. And I just want to, I hope that going through all this with you today can help you to see that actually by helping our land, we are helping other lands as well and other people. Okay, we can set that example, we can start the ball rolling. We can encourage other people to stand up and fight for their own environments. Okay, but it's just so much easier if you can start with your own country. So the thing I really wanted to speak to you about that I touched on in the last video is the health issues, because I mentioned them a few times, but I didn't really go through exactly what people have been suffering with. So I've posted a video underneath, a link underneath this video called The Truth Behind the Dash for Gas, and it's a documentary about Somerset, fracking in Somerset, and it goes through some of the health issues. There's another documentary I watched about America and it's called Groundswell Rising. It's absolutely incredible. I will see if I can get hold of it. That's not actually on YouTube, but I'll try and find it to show you. But the issues that people go through on that documentary are just mind-blowing. And in case you don't get to watch it, I would like to go through a couple of them now. So on these documentaries, you will see people turning on their tap water and they're able to light it on fire because there's methane coming out of it. And people are actually drinking that. You will see people with blisters or rashes on their skin because they've showered in that water, and because the chemicals are pumped into the land, it comes up in our water table. That's what I mean by that. It's literally coming out of people's taps. You'll see mothers devastated because their children have got rashes on their skin, or that there's a gas field made right next to their school and they're worried about their breathing. A load of people have respiratory problems. People are coming out with all sorts of different cancers because of these issues. And then you also see like this lovely older man, and he was fighting back the tears on the Groundswell Rising documentary because there are right outside his house there is truck after truck after truck going down this little country road which hardly had any traffic on before, and now it's just constant noise and constant traffic pollution right outside his house. And he, and there's other people that you see on there as well, their houses are completely devalued. People don't want to live there because the air's polluted, there's noise, there's traffic, the water's contaminated. People can't sell their houses and they can't move, and it's just completely devastating to a lot of people. They also describe on that documentary people that have moved to the fracking area because they're said, you know, they come for the job. And so they take all their family there, they set up their life, they have a community there. But then the fracking wells dry up and they're out of a job, and then they have to uphaul their family again and move again. There's also, not on the documentaries, but something I'd like to mention, in New York State, there was fracking there, and then the local council really paid attention to some studies that were being done on unborn babies, and the rate of miscarriage had gone up considerably, and the problems with babies as they were born had gone up considerably. That state actually decided to stop fracking completely, and that was because of the health issues, and 10,000 people lost their jobs, but the council made that decision that they would rather people lost their jobs than babies losing their health and people having health problems. So that's what we're dealing with, okay? And I just feel like all of these arguments I'm going to go through completely fall by the wayside when you consider the health issues of the local people in the local area. Okay, but let's go through them one by one. So the first one, putting money in hands of countries with less moral governments. I actually, when you consider that question, Saudi Arabia comes to mind. Dia actually put Saudi Arabia there as an example. So, and you think, oh yeah, really good point. But when you start thinking about it, you think, okay, but what is moral? Because if what you're talking about is the fact that Saudi Arabia does public executions, is that more or less moral than allowing contaminated water to come through the taps that people are drinking and causing cancer, etc., when they're completely innocent as well? What is morality in that case? Secondly, if we are talking about morality with those countries, then we should be stopping all trade with those countries, not just the trade for gas and oil. So I actually looked it up, and there are 6,000 different companies in the UK that trade with Saudi Arabia. Communications, all sorts of other things. So we should be looking at stopping all of those, if that's the case, which clearly we're not. And the third thing about that is that Saudi Arabia has currently had a big investment in renewable energy because they have the desert right there. They are producing a lot of solar and wind power, So if we were then to say to Saudi Arabia, okay, we will buy your energy if it's from renewable sources, is that more or less moral than destroying our own land for the same resources? It makes, it's just thinking about these things properly. Okay, the second one, causing damage through extraction in other places outside the UK, we are just further away. Other countries may have less regulation on extraction and more damage to the earth may occur as a result. I do feel like this is a very speculative view, that you cannot say that damaging one place more or damaging here more, which is worse. I don't feel like that's really quantifiable. And I see what you're saying about the regulation, but one thing I did mention in the other video is about how actually the government aren't really putting any regulations here. They and Quadrilla admit that they don't really know where the waste is going to end up. They don't actually have a decent plan. So when you're talking about regulations, it's really, it's not such a black and white issue, and actually you don't know that the other countries aren't doing it better. I feel like this is just another phrase that is made to boost fracking, but I would really like to see the evidence of which country is actually regulating it better, to be honest. And the other thing with this one is, as I said earlier, if the UK were to turn around and say, do you know what, we don't want fracking at all in this country, we don't want any kind of extraction in this country because of the health issues, because of the land damage, etc., etc., and we would really like to help other countries that are doing extraction to find alternatives to stop them from doing it as well. Do you not think that that's a better route? That we find the alternatives that other countries can copy, and then they can, other countries can say, oh, you know, actually the UK, they've got this really big economy, which is obviously what other countries are wanting, but look at them, they're not fracking, so maybe we should consider alternatives as well. I think that's a much better argument, do you not? Okay, the next one, number 3, polluting the planet further as the material needs to be transported over far larger distances. Okay, this this sentence, again, on face value, you think, oh yeah, of course, because the gas and oil has to travel all the way across Europe to get to us. However, again, is there a statistic saying that that transportation pollution is more or less than us fracking here, which causes more pollution to the planet as a whole? Because that's what you're saying, polluting the planet further. If we're talking planetary, which is actually worse? Please give me a statistic that tells me which one. The other thing here is, as I mentioned earlier, you actually increase traffic pollution in the local area. So, for example, up in Blackpool, if they were to do that fracking, the local traffic would be much more frequent. Therefore, again, are we really lessening pollution as a whole? I don't know. And then thirdly, as I said earlier, when you're considering all the other health issues, contamination of water, there are so many environmental issues that damage the planet because of fracking. It's not only about normal traffic pollution, there are so many other little things to consider with fracking. Okay, and then the last one, number 4, not allowing certain British businesses to compete with businesses elsewhere. I'm not much of a business person, I don't know much about money and economy and all these things, but as I did say to you in the last video, all the business, as far as I understand it, with Quadrilla, everything, they all depend on investors, and they cannot actually guarantee any kind of competitiveness of this business. So you're saying that we need our businesses to compete with ones overseas, but there's actually no evidence that they will do that, and that they will do that anyway. Okay, there's no evidence that there is money in fracking. At least long term. Okay, maybe you'll see a big rise short term, but then, as I said to you before about the fracking in America, and eventually the wells dry up, they have to move on. Over long-term gains, you know, we're not talking about a big competitive business here anyway. Secondly, please try telling the people that have tap water coming out that they can light on fire that it is good for British businesses. Again, when it comes to considering the health issues, this argument completely falls by the wayside. These things that I'm talking about, you know, the points that have been put here are so, you know, we're talking politics really, and I'm not much of a politician, and I didn't really want to get much into the politics. And the main reason is it's so changeable. Like, the only reason I mentioned the political parties in the last video is because that's the truth. That's how it is right now. The Tories are for it, the Labour, Lib Dems, etc. are not. But I'm not about to sit here and tell you who to vote for, because that can change. I mentioned the law that's about national interest in the last video. So the people up in Lancashire said no, they don't want fracking. It was overridden because the government said no, it's of national importance, national interest for us to do that, and that's actually the law that they use. That law was put in place by the Labour government, and presumably they still support that law. It's just that they're not supporting fracking as part of that. But that could change. This is why I don't want to really get into the politics, because it's all a never-ending waltz, as I said. Okay. So the other issue surrounding politics is that then you feel like there's always an enemy, there's an opponent, there's somebody to fight. And while, yes, I do feel like we are fighting a fight here, just consider that we are all, as a collective, especially as Britain, we are all responsible for this, actually. It's our mentality, our lifestyle, the way we live our lives with cars and heat in our houses and all these things. Really, our mentality is to blame for it. And this is why you cannot look at the Tory government and say, oh, that's really, really bad that you've brought that law in, and said, oh, it's of our national interest for fracking to happen, because that's how they see it. And this is what all these points have been pointing to, that it is of our national interest for fracking to happen. So what we need to stand up and say is that actually, do you know what? We don't need all that. We don't need fracking to happen. We don't need the fossil fuels. That's actually one of the main things that you can do, is to reduce your carbon footprint, reduce your fossil fuel use, and change your mentality about what you're buying and where you're moving and how you're travelling, and what you do to heat your house, and all these things can actually really help. It's our mentality that drives it, is what I'm trying to say. Okay? So, as I said before, when these points come up, just try to think around it. Try and really consider it from all angles. And I really have tried to think, oh yeah, but what about this and that? But my main message with this video is, when you consider the health issues, then all of these arguments just disappear. for me. They can't stand up against having methane coming out of your tap and lighting it on fire. Basically, it sounds so ridiculous, but it happened. It actually happens, and it's happening now in America. It's just crazy. So this is what I'm saying to you. You cannot take my word for it, or the word of the media. Please do your own research. I'm going to put the documentaries underneath this video, and again, just get more informed. Thank you so much for listening again. Love you, and thank you Dee, for your comments. All right, love you much. Bye bye.